Hey everyone, and welcome to a brand new video. Tonight we have 2 hours of horror stories as per usual. I hope you all enjoy it. Typically I do like 7, 8, or 9 short stories. This time it's 4 kind of longer stories. I really enjoyed tonight's lineup, so I hope you all enjoy it as well. If you do, please be sure to drop a like rating. Let's see if we can reach, let's go for 1100 likes on this one. Liking the video helps out immensely. Subscribing if you are new is also very much appreciated. I post content just like this as often as I can. But yeah, sit back, do whatever it is that you do to relax, enjoy the 2 hours of horror stories with no mid-roll ads. Except for the ad break after this intro, there won't be any more after that one. None during the stories, none in between the stories, nothing. Until the video is over, of course. And as always, I hope you all have a great night. Good night, everyone. She had said it was going to be a late night at the office. I remembered that first night well. 9:30 p.m. She still wasn't home. Was probably burning the midnight oil. The thought crossed me. In this sort of market, maybe that's fine. Jobs are a rarity. There are worse things than working hard. I forced myself under the covers, shut my eyes, and waited for sleep to take me. The next morning, when she wasn't splayed out beside me, I convinced myself she must have sauntered in at 11 p.m. and left at 6 a.m., having sprinted through her morning rituals before I'd even had time to separate the blinds. My first text to her was delivered at 8:48 a.m., sitting in the uncomfortable chair of my more uncomfortable cubicle. Work's really killing you, huh? A certain flavor of guilt washed over me when I realized I still didn't fully understand what her new job entailed. The title was Project Manager, but I always found the term nebulous. My mind shot back to words she'd mentioned when she discussed it. Neural networks and visual processing. They were coming up on a big project deliverable. I nodded, of course. I'd always nod. I put the phone down and subjected myself to the minutiae of the day. A watched pot never boils after all. Soon, I'd get distracted, forget about everything, and then I'd hear from her. Corporate bureaucracy held my attention for a few hours when my phone vibrated. I checked it immediately. A dumb meme from a friend I hadn't spoken to in ages. Great. Already I was willing to cave on the internal rule I'd set for myself to not think about it. I sent her a new text. Finally. Hey hun, where are you? And then called her too, for good measure. Her voicemail played. Hi, this is Ella, A. I cannot answer the phone right now, eh? So you should try to call me back, yeah? Back, yeah. A. This is really sad. And then laughter as her sing-song Rihanna impression broke down and I heard the beep. I waited for the phone to buzz again, for a call back. Something. When there was nothing, the next thought was, is a good husband supposed to call the cops immediately when he doesn't know where his wife is? Or was I just overthinking things? I left work early and depersonalized the entire way home, speeding on the freeway, stuck in traffic, waiting for the light to change. Being colorblind, I go by traffic light position. Pulling into the driveway, all of it done with no real lucidity. At home, pacing back and forth in slippers on the hardwood floor. 6 p.m. turned to 7 p.m. turned to 9. I'd occasionally grab the remote, flip through some random streaming service, hoping something the all-seeing algorithm suggested might pull me away from my anxiety, but nothing did. So, when 10 p.m. rolled around, I called the cops. After a brief transfer, once I clarified that my situation was urgent, but perhaps not life or death urgent, the gruff voice on the other end of the line asked me when I'd last seen Ella. If this was unusual, and if she'd been going through anything recently, acting strangely, differently. Following my answer that yes, this was a little out of the ordinary, And no, nothing seemed off before today. He then got her car and license details from me, told me they'd ping her phone, and assured me they'd circle back as soon as they could, maybe even send an officer to my house. They were on it, in short words I found comforting before I realized that the boilerplate phrase was probably thrown around all the time by them. The bit of action I'd taken suddenly put my brain into motion. Coworkers. And yes, perhaps I was just overthinking, but still. Coworkers. I spent too long workshopping the text messages to James and Preeti. Her two colleagues, I'd met a couple of gatherings now. I wish people death when they cut me off in traffic. And yet, I overthink sincerity in text to strangers. Maybe try therapy. Her voice in my head. Not now, hon. I'm trying to find you. I sent the text. Hey James, I hope you're well. I was curious if Ella is still at the office. Preeti, basically the same text. Then back to waiting again. In the blur of anxious monotony, I melted into my sofa, twiddled my thumbs, and ordered a grand mocha frappuccino via DoorDash for $18 because it felt like a wise financial move. I watched the app as the little icon crept down the street. Jennifer, the driver, still had a few stops to make. A new text on my phone all of a sudden. Hi, is this Matt? To the jumble of numbers I didn't recognize but saw were from my area code, I responded, Yes, this is Matt. Before I could say more, the 3 typing dots appeared at the bottom of the screen, and the next messages came through in rapid succession. My name's Ken. Not sure if you remember, but I met you at bowling 2 months ago. Ping. My wife May works with Ella. They work on the same team. The bowling trip was organized by some of their coworkers. They allowed +1s. Ping. We had a WhatsApp group to organize heading there together. That's why I have your number. Hope you remember. I'm sorry for texting you out of the blue. I get it, Ken, and yes, I remember. Please get to the... Ping. My wife didn't come home last night from work. I tried reaching her coworkers. Friends, too. Everyone. No one knows where she is. Huh. I called him. It rang and it rang and it rang. I was just texting you. Please, for the love of all that is holy. Hello? He finally answered. Did any of her coworkers get back to you? I asked. What? You said you tried reaching her coworkers. Did they respond? Did they say they didn't know where she was? No, none of them got back to me. Do you think something happened? At work, maybe? I didn't like the words coming out of my mouth. I'll call you back, I said. I hung up, placed the phone down. Ken already calling back. I breathed in deep and Googled the address of the high-rise building Ella worked in. It was a new build. I remembered when she first told me about the job and the office she'd be working in. Babe, just look. There's a whole page about the amenities, she said. Sorry, I'm just slammed right now. All good. Didn't mean to bother. I'll look. Later I'll look. Promise. Of course, I didn't ever actually look. A knock at my door all of a sudden. Excitement and relief simultaneously. Before I opened it and saw the Starbucks bag on my doormat. Why would I do this to myself? Why would I spur hope like this? I grabbed the bag, brought it inside, returned to my laptop and steeled myself for any horrific articles about the building. No articles. I nonetheless wondered if it'd be worthwhile to go there, just to rule it out. Inaction would only make me spiral. Ken calling again. A few missed calls from him now at this point. Tunnel vision was making me a prick. I answered. Hi, I'm heading to the building, I said. Oh, he said. Okay. Then, want a carpool? I'm already en route. I lied. But, meet you there? Sure. I'll call you when you're... I hung up, headed to the car. Off the backdrop of the night, I thought about her. Ella had auburn hair. She listened to ABBA in her headphones when she vacuumed. Always ABBA. Her favorite thing was shoving her phone into my face to show me something she was convinced was funny when it absolutely wasn't. She loved astrology memes. She hated the beach. Why? I'm not entirely sure. Our marriage has been rocky lately. We'd been doing the counseling thing. It was less fighting and more distance. I suppose. The recent line she'd been repeating was that she'd always been willing to make sacrifices and change for our relationship. I hadn't. I've been fixed in place, unable to change. I secured my seatbelt, and as I did, I saw a new message on my phone. From James, her coworker. DNO, not OCOME. Anxiety now. I texted him back to elaborate on his typo-filled note. I tried calling him multiple times. Radio silence. Heart palpitations now. I decided to start driving. I pulled into the expensive downtown parking lot surrounding the tower. Past the sea of dark headlights, I expected to see an inferno, or an explosion, something horrific. Instead, everything seemed fine, though it dawned on me that it was strangely hard to find parking. The lot was basically full, despite it being near midnight on a weeknight. I found purchase in a shadowy spot in the corner of the lot, parked, rushed out, sprinted to the building. Mid-sprint, I realized I'd passed Ella's car. Her beat-up Toyota Camry. There it was, just sitting. Like an afterthought, I peered through the foggy backseat window to see if there was anything of note in the car. Nothing. But this did mean that either she'd left somewhere on foot, or more realistically, was still here, in the building. I continued on, the glass tower looming ahead, its windows dark and reflective. As I neared, it became clear most of the floors had their lights off, the shades drawn. Meanwhile, the sound of tires over gravel, another car circling the lot. My phone rang. Ken, again. I answered. "Is that you?" he said, as I saw the man in the car 2 lanes down with cell phone pressed to ear looking my way. "Yeah," I said. "Find parking. I'll meet you at the front of the building." I hung up, and then I was there, at the base of the steps. James' strange text back to the forefront of my mind. Concrete steps led up to a broad landing before the glass entrance of the building. Beyond the doors sat a barren but exquisite lobby. The abject emptiness of the lightless foyer sat rather strangely with me. "Hey," I heard Ken's voice call from behind. I continued my staring contest with the building. Then I called my wife again. Straight to voicemail. No ring this time. "Hi, this is Ella. I cannot answer the phone. Ken was beside me now, salt and pepper hair. I remembered our bowling excursion together, the story about him and May moving here from South Korea after he landed an amazing job. I also remembered just how crap I was at bowling. "Should we go inside?" he asked. "I think so," I said. Then a thought hit me. Late. I called 911 again. 911, what's your emergency? "I called about my wife earlier, like an hour ago. Ella. I found her car. It's still parked where she..." And that's when I heard the blare of the sirens and saw police strobes flashing across the lot, government plates rolling in. "Sir?" the operator said. "Actually, I think you guys are already here." I hung up, just as the lady said, "What do you mean?" and watched with Ken as the cops arrived. He said, What do you think happened? I don't know. A row of 4 police vehicles beelined right to the entrance. Ken and I backed up. He started calling his wife, panicked. His breath grew rapid as he waited for a voice on the other end that I could tell he knew wasn't coming. May, call me back when you get this. I turned my attention to the new arrivals, spilling out of their vehicles donning uniforms. 13 or so of them, pushed past Ken and myself, moved up the steps the large space in front of the doors, and began stringing yellow police tape across the entrance of the high-rise, spreading out to hold the line. I saw a new crew, about 5 with tactical gear on, coming up right behind. Ready to enter, I heard one of the men on the tactical unit say into the mic on his shoulder. He pulled open the glass entrance door, the lobby beyond swallowed by darkness, and stepped inside, 4 others filling in behind him. I tried to get a better look inside, but the view through the swung open door showed nothing the glass walls hadn't already revealed. The rest of the units remained behind the tape. I cautiously made my way up the steps. Ken remained where he was. Maybe he didn't want to hear the grisly details of what might have taken place inside. I wasn't different from him in that way, but I needed to know what was going on. An officer approached me as I hit the landing at the top of the steps. As we spoke, it felt like our words were dancing past each other. "Hi," I said. "Is there... We can't share any information at this time. My wife works in that building. Can I... We've sent a team in, but unfortunately we can't. Just tell me if it's a hostage situation. Like I said, we can't say anything." A different officer came up beside him, on the younger side, bags under his eyes. "I don't think it's a hostage situation," she said, an eyebrow raised from the other cop. "I mean, I don't really know what it is exactly. I think that's probably the best we can say, right?" I paused for a second. "What?" She started, but then her expression shifted, as if she'd already said too much. She stopped herself, turned with her partner away from me, struggling with what to do next. I maneuvered back down the steps, reached Ken. "What did they say?" he asked. "They don't think it's a hostage situation. They're figuring it out. Sent some people." "Inside, yeah, I saw." "Yeah." Another look at the building. It was almost taunting me to enter. Then I headed back to my car. I could feel Ken wanting to ask me where I was going, but opting not to. I reached the shadowy corner of the lot again. I sat passenger side in my vehicle, readjusted the seats to incline as far back as possible. I had no idea what to do, or what was happening, but a watched pot never boils. And so I let the heaviness of my eyelids shut me out from the world. Ella wasn't too far away from me. She was right there, in that building. I just needed to distract myself. The cops would figure it out. It would all be okay. I drifted off. I woke up groggy, drooling. The lot was as dark as it was when I had first fallen asleep. I checked the time, 2 a.m. Solid hour and a half of an existential nap. I left the car, approached the building again, this time sure that the time-lapse would bring with it an insane amount of energy. Fanfare around the front of the building. I dreaded it. Yet I moved towards it. Footstep, footstep, footstep. Awaiting bad news, really. Footstep, footstep, footstep. I had a dream once that she died. Most of the details slipped my mind, but I remembered the feeling of that dream. It had felt like my life was completely over, like nothing mattered anymore. Footstep, footstep, footstep. Again my feet brought me to the edge of the steps, where a scene that was both more as well as less met me. The police presence looked much larger now, more cars than before at least, and yet a sort of empty feeling enveloped everything. I couldn't spot a single soul amidst the scaled-up operation. Besides Ken, of course, slumped on the walkway leading to the steps, eyes half open, drifting in and out. "Where is everyone?" I shouted, shuffling. I saw someone emerge from the back of one of the squad cars, looking frazzled. It was the woman from before, the one who said she didn't think it was a hostage situation. "You should leave," she said. "Where'd they all go?" I asked again. She struggled. "They went inside." "And what did they say?" They, It took her a second to finish it, but she completed the sentence by saying, "They haven't answered." Just as all of the lights in the building turned on, every floor, every room, illuminated. Before I could say anything, they all turned off. All I could do was stand still, blink. What the... "That happened an hour ago, too," she said nervously. "Everyone who went inside," I said, trying to process. "They just stopped responding?" "Yeah, the first team never responded when we tried radioing them. Next crew, same thing. Then another group, and now it's just me." As if telepathically able to discern, I was going to ask her the obvious question. "We have more people coming," she tagged. "They told me to stay back to keep continuity." "My wife is in there. Do you know anything?" "I don't. No." But something in her body language said otherwise. "Please," I said. "A beat. They just sent me some footage." "From inside?" She pointed around a lot. "No, from the exterior cameras in the moments leading up." "Show me." She looked at me like I was crazy. "Your whole crew is missing," I continued. "If this isn't the time to mess with the rulebook, I don't know when is." A sharp inhale through her nostrils, then a half-centimeter, barely perceptible nod. She headed towards her car. As I followed her, Ken rushed up beside me, having awoken from his sidewalk nap. The officer looked back, eyes saying, "Seriously?" "My wife's in there too," he said, likely having overheard the tail end of our conversation. She said nothing, just headed for her cruiser and unlocked the doors. Ken and I climbed into the back seat. From the front, she pulled the dash-mounted screen towards her, tapped a few keys, then angled it so we could see. The video showed security footage of the front entrance of the building, being fast-forwarded through. Hour after hour slipped by, the timestamp in the corner racing ahead as we only saw people entering the tower, never stepping out. We reached the point in the footage where the final squad went inside, and there it stopped. She then pressed a button and started rewinding the footage. The hours ticked backwards from present moment as we saw a replay of the last 2 days until roughly 48 hours ago. A new instance. Someone actually leaving the building. Specifically, a man dressed in business casual, with shoulder-length hair. The entranceway flickered behind him as he stepped out. Everything went dark for a brief moment before stabilizing. She paused the footage. 48 hours ago. The last time anyone left the building. "Do you know who that is?" I asked. "We haven't identified them yet. Team's not sure if he even has anything to do with it, or if he was just the last person lucky enough to leave." I squinted, tried to place the pixelated face. Then, a new thought. I unlocked the door, got out of the car. "Where are you?" They both started. "I'll be back. Don't go inside." I sped my way home, reached the front door, key in the lock and turn. I spent an immodestly long time searching for binoculars, snapping open drawers and cupboards until I found them. I tossed them into a backpack. Next, tape, and a roll of string that I found in one of Ella's craft baskets. Having grabbed everything I needed, I then went back to my laptop. I looked up the details of the company Ella worked for and maneuvered to their website. Buzzwords about cutting-edge research in cognitive modeling and perceptual imaging kept surfacing over and over, ushering in a new phase of technological evolution for the human race. I went to the section about the company's leadership team next. I was smacked in the face with an oversized image of the company's two founders. Both looked to be about in their mid-40s, well-dressed, twins. I thought back to the face I saw leaving the building in the security footage. It was hard to tell if the memory matched what I was looking at, but at the very least, the hair looked the same. Fighting off thoughts about whether these two freaks were a red herring, or if they were indeed trying to usher in Skynet or something, I decided to try Ella again. Maybe, just maybe, she was somewhere else. And I wouldn't have to think about this anymore. It could be the city's problem. I called her. That same old voicemail. I hung up. Certainly a night filled with fruitless phone calls. When I returned to the officer, Christine's cruiser, Ken was riding shotgun now. They both remained fixed on the building, attention permeating all around us. You said there were more officers coming, I asked. Yeah, she said. But they're just going to go inside, right? I don't know what the strategy is now. I looked at the time. 3:15 a.m. I have an idea, I said. It might be stupid, though. What is it? She asked. And it wasn't much longer after that the three of us were standing at the entrance of the building. In hand, my phone. I'd tied string around it, tight. Taped it for good measure, too. I pulled up the phone's camera and pressed record. Then, absolutely convinced this move would kill me, I opened the door to the building. No one seemed able to leave, and, harnessing every bit of hand-eye coordination available to me, made a very deliberate toss of my phone, trying to get it as far as possible while keeping it face up so it wouldn't flip. The move succeeded, the phone skidding past the receptionist's desk and into the narrow hallway behind it. The door closed, the string slipping beneath the glass frame. We stood still. Minutes disappeared into the ether. Then, Ken reopened the door. I pulled the string, brought the cell phone back out of the abyss and up into my hand. I pressed stop on the recording button, and we all squeezed together as I brought up the video that had been generated. On the dusty black screen displayed, the ceiling of the lobby, and a distant sound. Thumping, like something was happening in another room. And music. Is that Dancing Queen? Asked Christine. I brought my ear closer to the phone. The grainy sounds of a song were far into the background. Yet as I focused, there it was. The instantly recognizable ABBA tune. Ding. The sound of a nearby elevator arriving in the video. The doors opening. The doors closing. Then a slow scraping. Crawling. Labored breathing. Pained breathing. A voice that sounded like it had never known air. I'm so sorry. The video lingered on its stationary shot of the ceiling, before being dragged back to the outside world, ending on my disheveled reflection, poking the screen. I sat with the unplaceable feeling stirring within me. Then I looked around, spotted a big rock near the bottom of the steps. I shifted down, grabbed it, ran back up. What are you doing? Ken. I'm gonna break a window. Whatever is happening, we're gonna get some attention. Do you think that's gonna do anything helpful for us? Said Christine. We can't just do nothing, I said. Lights flickered from one of the higher floors all of a sudden. We turned our heads up in unison to catch a bloodied hand reaching up to the window in one of the freshly illuminated rooms. So high up. The hand brought with it a piece of paper, which it pressed flat against the window. Binoculars. I pulled them out of my bag, focused on the sight. The piece of paper featured the following message in chaotic scrolls. Don't try to save us. It looked like a kindergartner wrote it, each subsequent word featuring more messier penmanship than the last, as if executive function waned with each letter. The hand kept slamming the message, the paper, against the window. "What's it say?" Ken asked. I handed him the binoculars. He looked up, froze. "That's May's hand." The words came out of him immediately, too quickly. "What?" asked Christine and I in unison. He handed me the binoculars, desperation marking his voice. "I think that's May's hand." "You think?" "Yeah," he said. "I mean, maybe." "Wait, Ken, hold on. I think I saw a blue bracelet," he said, looking unreachable. I fixed the binoculars against my eyes again and looked up, but the hand was gone, only streaks of blood remaining. Was there a bracelet? I don't remember. "I think I saw it," he continued, listless. "It was just like hers, and if she's in danger, I have to go." He beelined to the door. Christine rushed after him. "Take out your phone," I shouted. "What?" he asked. "If you're gonna be a hero..." "Matt, what are you doing?" asked Christine. "If you're gonna be a hero," I continued, "answer my call and narrate everything, and we'll come find you." I waited for his expression to shift, for reality to sink in and for his bravery to disappear. But he didn't waver. Instead, he pulled out his phone. "Call me," I said, and he did. A split second of my phone ringing brought back the fantasy of maybe, just maybe, it being Ella calling, before I snapped back to reality and answered the call. "All right," I said into the phone, dodging Christine's incredulous glare. "Describe everything you see, and don't stop talking." He nodded, phone pressed against his ear. He entered the building. I stayed on the line, Christine beside me, bated breath. "The lobby's dark," he said. "Explain everything. Don't hold any details back." I caught him through the glass walls, taking slow, deliberate steps, inching forward to the end of the lobby. "You killed him," Christine whispered. "Don't say that," I whispered back. Then to him, "Tell me what you see, Ken." "It's still the lobby. It's still dark. I'm going into the hallway. I see something by the elevator. They're on the ground. They don't look well. I see..." And then he froze. "See..." The grainy, distant music in the background again. A new track now. "What?" "See..." he repeated. "See?" I asked. "See... see..." "Ken?" Christine yelled over the phone. "See..." "Snap out of it, man," I said. "See..." "Ken?" "Say something," Christine said again. "Ken." 23. I was at a loss for words. 23, he repeated. "What does that mean, Ken? You were just with us." 23. I heard the phone hit the ground with a clatter. The sound of footsteps. Silence besides the grainy background music until the ding of an elevator arriving. Christine grabbed my phone, angrily hung up the call. "So," she said, "did you get what you needed from that?" "He was gonna go in there no matter what," I said. "We need to figure out what happened." "We don't need to do anything. This is National Guard territory." We can't wait anymore. It's already been too long. My wife's in there. Yes, so was his. My mind raced with horrific thoughts. I tried to block out the noise. There had to be a way forward. Obviously, she continued. Something took over him in there. A new, desperate theory crossed my mind. I had to run with it. Sound, I said. What? That's what's overtaking everyone. There's something I don't know. Maybe coded into the songs or something. Something subliminal. You're gonna stake your life on that? Hell is my life. The irony wasn't lost on me that my rush back to Christine's cruiser, yanking at the locked door, mirrored the same desperate push Ken just made. In a morbid way, his restlessness made me think I'd been moving too slowly. She sighed as I kept pulling on it. Help? I asked. What are you? Hearing protection. Do you have anything at all that can block out noise? For the final time, we stood in front of the building with a half-baked plan. I'm not positive, I told her. Both of us had hearing protection earmuffs, like the ones you'd use at a range, half on. But if I wait, and she dies, I continued, I won't be able to live with myself. I secured the earmuffs over my other ear and walked towards the entrance. I'd told Christine she didn't have to come with me, that she could wait for backup and work out a new plan with whoever showed up next. But in the reflection of the glass, I saw her pull her own hearing protection into place and fall in close behind. We stepped inside the building. Lobby furniture shrouded in darkness. I sensed a faint, electronic light casting the lightest of shadows over the walls. I couldn't hear my own footsteps as I maneuvered around the reception desk. I lifted my head, caught an expensive chandelier and fixtures hanging from the high ceiling. Despite attempts at controlled breathing, my heart pounded with the intensity of an intruder at the door. I peeked into the narrow hallway, and immediately, my gaze dropped to the sight of a sickly, dying thing. Flesh loose, hanging over bones and organs like cloth draped over a mannequin. I knew it was human, or at least, used to be. My eyes lifted to a large TV screen fixed against the nearby wall. It had what looked to be a stock image on it, a photo of a little girl facing the camera, smiling while holding a flower out in front of her, a surreal, too comforting grass field in the background. At the bottom of the screen, in a murky, blood-dark color, it read, 23. I looked behind me. Went to mouth something to Christine, but the second I spotted her eyes, she had a far-away stare, locked onto the image. I saw her mouth, 23. She repeated it. Christine? I said. I shook her shoulders, but nothing registered for her. I briefly, instinctively turned back to the photo, almost as if I wanted to brick my own brain just to get it, but then quickly turned away again. Christine headed to the elevator, clinical in her movement. Press the call button. Ding. The doors opened onto the sterile interior. I rushed behind her and stepped inside. She had already pressed the button for the 23rd floor. Between the closing doors, I noticed that the person-esque thing lying on the ground in front of us had a blue bracelet around what remained of its hand. I'm so sorry, Ken. I heard the voice rasp and wondered if, before Ken lost himself, he had recognized who he saw in the hallway. The elevator car moved up swiftly. I took my earmuffs off and dropped them to the floor. My sound theory was moot. I looked over. Christine stared ahead with a lobotomized look, while sterile corporate music played in the background. Completely gone. We approached closer and closer to floor 23. A horrific mosaic of sounds started creeping in, and as I wondered why I hadn't been overtaken, Compromised the way everyone else had been, I resolved that it was best I follow Christine's actions from here on out. Act like her. It was a decision I made only a split second before. Ding. We arrived. The doors opened to a wall with a large screen mounted on it. On screen, the same stock footage. Girl with the flower, a new word at the bottom in a blood dark hue. Left. Christine immediately turned left into the corridor. I did the same, trying to stay in lockstep with her. Same rhythm, same cadence, same lifeless, mechanical movement. We hit the end of the hall, where another display was mounted to the wall. The girl with the flower on screen again, and at the bottom of the screen, right. Christine with a sharp right turn. I followed again, convinced I was stupidly walking right into death. I'm coming, Ella. I didn't expect the music cue. The bright synth riff of Queen's I Want to Break Free starting up. As we paced the long corridor, drum machine, bass, and guitar joined. Then, I Want to Break Free, sang Freddie Mercury. The power walk continued as I voiced out the side of my mouth. Christine, are you in there? To no response. We hit another wall with another TV bolted on. That same stock photo and the word beneath. Left. Another turn into a long hallway. I followed my dance partner. I want to break free from your lies. You're so self-satisfied. I don't need you. I spotted blood on the floor, and a body up ahead. A body. Crawling. The thing, person, whatever looked inhuman, trying to keep pace with Christine's brisk stride. I barely had time to clock its warped features and broken appendages. God knows I want to break free. End of the hallway, another screen. Flower girl, left. We followed the direction. I felt like we were reaching the end, but I have to be sure when I walk out the door. Screens line both walls on the hallway now, flanking us. The image of the girl with the flower repeating again and again. New words pulsed at the bottom of the screens, catching in my peripheral vision. Continue, don't stop. Get ready to shed, let it all go. And ahead of us, the open doors to a massive hall. I steeled myself. We entered the gigantic room, and I caught a scene that didn't fit words. Rows and rows of people. At least some look like people. Others, completely unrecognizable. Most on the floor, dead. Life squeezed out of them, like they'd aged hundreds of years. Faces hollowed out, eyelids liquid. Some trembling, shuddering, on all fours. Ligaments torn, new appendages growing, changing shape. In the darkness of the room amidst the electronic glare of a large screen, I would have described most of the occupants as creatures, beyond alien, figures that didn't make sense. Catching Christine starting to shiver, I matched her movements, those near the back of the hall, including Ken, who I spotted nearby, were shaking, sweating, slowly losing their hair, developing strange lesions, but still human. I was sure that near everyone who must have worked in this building was squeezed into this large hall. The music continued, the instrumental break ending, as the vocals kicked back in. I forced myself to lift my eyes to the giant projected image of the flower girl covering the far wall. Splayed like we were all moviegoers in a theater. I read the word at the bottom. Evolve. Freddie sang. But life still goes on. I can't get used to living without you by my side. Ella. What have they done to you? I spotted a man walking the rows. Longish hair. Surprisingly nice clothes on for such a brutal affair. Pair of dark sunglasses on, too. the only one not looking at the screen. Like me, he seemed unaffected. God knows, got to make it on my own. He made his way closer. Under his breath, he kept repeating the same words. Evolve. Examining with the carelessness of a yoga instructor. So baby, can't you see? I've got to break free. As he came within reach, I recognized him. The photo from the website of the company Ella worked for. One of the two twin founders. He shifted past the shivering Ken. Evolve. The dissociating Christine. Evolve. And as his eyes met mine, evolve. I broke away from my act and forced him to the ground with everything I had. His skull cracked against the floor. My hands cinched around his throat. Yet as I tried to force the life out of him, he just looked curious. How are you not affected? Tell me how I stop this, I said, a smile as if that was never going to happen. The image, he continued. How is it not working? I realized the answer as I spoke the words. Colorblind, red-green deficiency. We're working on a version for that too. I tightened my grip. Pain was the only tool I had at my disposal. Tell me where Ella is. So you're the husband. Where? I'm so proud of her. She's proof. Our theorem had merit. You killed her? Far from it. She's the reason me and my brothers' names will live on forever. I crushed the air from the freak's lungs. He writhed, but I kept my hands locked in place long after his resistance faded. The song ended, and then a new tune began. ABBA's Dancing Queen. It played as I weaved through rows and rows of horror, reaching the projector, casting the image. I knocked it to the floor, smashed at it, kicking, tearing, feral, doing everything I could to upturn the sinister broadcast. Finally, the image was gone from the wall. I looked behind to see a sea of chimeric death, still cloaked in darkness. There were only a dozen or so people near the back of the hole who looked alive at this point. I rushed back to them, to Christine in particular. What the? I heard her say. I snatched the sunglasses off the corpse of the founder. It's an image, I said. An image that overrides your mind, gives you a command. She was still coming back to reality, not totally registering what I was saying. Put them on, I said, handing her the shades. Then leave the building. How did you... Go. She took deep breaths to ground herself, like whatever state she'd returned from was hellish beyond words. The rest of you, I said, addressing Ken and the others. Blindfold yourselves as you leave. Use your shirts or whatever you have on you. Christine, I pointed to her, will lead the way. The few survivors, still confused, shifted their eyes towards the cosmic mess of human destruction around them. Don't linger, I repeated. Leave, eyes closed, or blindfolds. Christine leads. She put on the dark frames, looked at me. What are you gonna do? Don't worry about me. I shifted away from the group, toward the end of the hall. I glanced back over my shoulder to see, amid crying, panic, and breakdowns, the few survivors pulling themselves together, covering their eyes with their hands or lifting jackets to obscure their sight, while Christine led them out. I prayed Ken wouldn't linger near the first floor hallway. When he got there, prayed he wouldn't see the horror of what became of May. I continued on. My eyes shot from bleeding out creature to bleeding out creature. Chimeras, monstrosities, the rare human-like corpse among the aberrations. I sat in the middle of the destruction and called her cell one last time. Straight to voicemail. Tears fell. I wasn't totally there. It felt like my body was grieving before my brain could make sense of it. A loud scream came from outside all of a sudden. I rushed to one of the windows, peeked out, saw a nearby billboard with a new image overtaking it, the stock photo with the girl. I looked past it, billboard after billboard, screen after screen, all overtaken by the flower girl image. The word at the bottom on every display: evolve. I thought back to the security footage in Christine's cruiser, the man who left the building. I had to wonder if he was the brother, the other founder, and if he'd just now done his half of the psychopathic job. Not that it mattered. It was clear whatever they'd attempted in the building didn't work. More importantly, Ella was gone. There was no life for me anymore. Then I heard a voice in my head. Matt. I shot up. It was vivid. Too vivid. Matt, it's all right. I'm right here. It sounded like Ella. Where are you? Is this real? It's okay, hun. You can change now. I headed toward the entrance at the back of the hall, trying to find the source. I can't change, I said. I can't. It doesn't even work on... Not that I'd want it to. Cold. Cold? I started backtracking. Warm. I looked all around me. Tell me this is a bad dream, Ella. I knew you'd come. I kept shining lights for you. I shifted deeper into the hall again. Warmer. I felt disoriented. I wasn't seeing straight anymore. Even warmer. Lights, Ella. Every time they all turned on, that was me. Now evolve so we can stay together. My breath quickened. A new type of horror hit me. I spotted a door at the front of the hall, cast in shadow. It creaked just a hair open, with something peeking out. Ella? All of the lights snapped on, as if commanded to by an invisible force. Through the horror of the all-too-clear room now, I locked eyes with the nightmare peeking out at me. Ella? I asked. Found me. When I was younger, I wanted my sister to go away. I didn't want her to die necessarily. I didn't want anyone to physically hurt her. But I wanted her to go away. Not even permanently, just for a while. Just enough time for my parents to shine their gaze on me. Just for once. Just for a little while. But that didn't happen. Claire had everything. She was beautiful, popular, smart. She was in every extracurricular. She received fantastic marks. The principal knew her by name in a good way. She came out of the womb as the golden girl of the family. The worst part? She was nice to everyone, especially me. She went out of her way to befriend me, make a sister connection. When she was 5, she drew pictures of us together. When she was 10, she read my favorite YA series so we could talk about it. She tried everything. But I couldn't help but loathe her. Being outshined by your baby sister is hard enough. Feeling guilty about the hate you have towards her is even worse. Everything changed when Claire entered her senior year of high school. She was 18 and having her dream high school experience. I was in my second year of college by this point, and still living at home. I was just about to lock myself in my room for the night with my hot date of reality TV when I heard it. Oh, stop it. You're bad. It was Claire's whispered voice, between giggles, coming from her bedroom. I paused and stepped closer. Who was she talking to? Tonight? It's late. Baby, there's zero way I could get out of the house without someone seeing. Well, well, perfect little princess is going to sneak out to see a boy. I was practically foaming at the mouth to rat her out to our parents, just to see them disappointed in her for once. I know, I want to see you too. I know it isn't the same over the phone. Yes, I know you've been patient. Okay, I know. Yes. This weekend my parents have a thing. Can I finally meet you then? I take a step closer to hear the specifics, which makes the floor softly creak. I hold my breath. Hey, I've gotta go. I'll text you, okay? Okay, bye. I hear her shift quickly and her footsteps coming to her door. My panic surges and I try to get as far away from her room as possible in a matter of seconds. Just then her door swings open. Oh, Sissy, it's you. She smiles, out of breath from coming to the door. Just going to my room, I say cautiously. Normally I would bite her head off for using the nickname she has always called me, but I let it go. I've always hated it, though I don't understand exactly why. She smiles at me in relief, and I decide to make sure I wasn't imagining the earlier conversation I overheard. Claire, I wanted to invite you to a concert I'm going to on Saturday. Do you want to go? Mom and Dad have their party, so we can grab a bite and go. I offer. Her face falls. Claire is always trying to tag along with me to things. Oh, that sounds so fun. I would love to, really, but, I told Mary Beth I would sleep over at her house on Saturday, and her mom is doing a big dinner thing, so I told her I would go. She lies, trailing off while toying with her ring on her middle finger. Oh, that's too bad. Maybe next time, I tell her. She must really want to go meet whoever this is. Normally, she would never turn this down. I turn and walk towards my room. My hand is on the door when Claire's voice sounds again. You know what? I'll cancel with Mary Beth. She'll understand, and we can have sister time. She offers. Crap. Oh, it's okay, I quickly say. We can always do something another time. Enjoy your time with Mary Beth. Her smile falters a bit. You mean it? We will do something another time? Because I would really like that, Sissy, Claire says softly, and her honest expression almost makes me falter. Almost. Of course, Claire, we have all the time in the world, I say, opening my door casually. She smiles brightly, nods, and disappears downstairs. I'm not a bad person, I promise. I just want Claire to understand how I've felt my whole life being the family disappointment. I don't even hate Claire. I just want her to suffer. Just a little bit. Saturday came in a flash. That morning I saw Claire redoing her hair over and over, trying to get her auburn hair to lay just right. That afternoon, I saw her laying out at least a dozen outfits on her bed, carefully analyzing each one. I watch her from her open door for a minute while she furrows her brows at each option. You're sure putting a lot of effort into looking nice for Mary Beth, I say, causing her to jump in surprise. Oh, she laughs softly. I think she wants to take photos, so I just want to make sure I look nice for them. I'm probably overthinking it. I nod and step into her room, peering down at the unlimited options. The green dress, with your denim jacket, makes your hair look really vibrant, I offer, surprising myself. Her eyes widen a bit as she takes in the small compliment. Really? You think so? She asks me. I nod. Green is your color for sure, I add. She smiles brightly. Thank you. It's actually my favorite color, too. You can't go wrong with a sister pick, she says excitedly, holding up the green dress on the hanger. The sudden sisterhood moment starts to make me feel overwhelmed. I force a smile and begin to walk out of the room before I remember. Oh, I'm leaving at 7 for my concert. When is Mary Beth picking you up? I ask. She seems confused for a half second, but corrects her face quickly. Oh, about 7:30. Don't worry, I'll lock up before I leave, she says casually, opening her jewelry box on her bed. Sounds good. Have fun tonight. I call over my shoulder as I head to my room. You too, Claire calls after me, even though she's only a few feet away. For some reason, she already seems so far away from me. The concert wasn't real. I had no plans for one, which was also why I insisted she go to her actual plans. My plan was easy. I would leave the house at 7 p.m., grab some food, then circle around for a while. Once Claire was gone, I would go to Mary Beth's house, claiming she forgot something at home. She wouldn't be there, and then I would call my parents in a fake panic, causing them to leave their party and come home to track Claire down. Claire gets caught with whatever boy she's with. Mom and Dad yell at her. She gets the "how could you disappoint us like this" face, and I revel in their anger. And tomorrow the dust will settle. Claire will bat her eyes and apologize, and everything will go back to normal. But for one night, she will get it, and that's all I need. At about 8:15 p.m., I go back to my house. I had to make sure Claire actually left. I open the door slowly and call into the house. Hello? Claire, you still here? Silence. I climb the stairs and look into her room. She isn't there, but her denim jacket is on the bed. She must have forgotten it. Oh no, Claire, you forgot your jacket. I say out loud in an exaggerated voice. I should be a good sister and return this to you at Mary Beth's house, which you are so totally at this evening. I take the jacket with me downstairs and immediately leave the house, jumping in my car. I'm almost giddy with excitement. I drive the 5 minutes to Mary Beth's house, humming along to my music. When I get there, I open my door and practically skip up the walkway and ring the bell. I then remind myself that I need to play concerned sister, and furrow my brows the way I saw Claire do it that morning. A beat later, Mary Beth's mother comes to the door. Oh, hello, sweetie, she coos. Hey there, just coming by to drop off Claire's jacket. She left it at home and it's cold outside, I say, holding the jacket up. Mary Beth's mother tilts her head at me. Well, that is awfully kind of you, but Claire isn't here. I don't think so, at least. One moment. She turns back into the house and calls for her daughter. Mary Beth casually walks to the door. Her expression falls when she sees me. Honey, is Claire here? Her sister came by to drop off her jacket. Her mother says, gesturing to me. Oh, no, she isn't. But she will be. She is coming over. Later. Yeah, later. Mary Beth stammers. I widen my eyes and look directly at Mary Beth. She isn't here? What do you mean? She told me she would be. Didn't you pick her up? I ask her. Mary Beth's cheeks turn pink as she looks sideways to her mom. Mary Beth, do you know where Claire is? Her mother demands. Mary Beth quickly shakes her head. I shake my head and inhale deeply. Okay, I think I'm going to call my parents, I say with a defeated expression. Oh, honey, at least come inside to call them. It's cold outside. I'll make you some tea, Mary Beth's mom offers, standing aside to let me pass through. Thank you, I tell her, pulling out my phone, which already has my mom's phone information pulled up, and I hit the green call button. About 30 minutes later, I see my parents' car pull into Mary Beth's driveway. I meet them at the door with that sad expression I've perfected over the last half hour. What's happening? Where's Claire? My mom practically shrieks as she walks up the pavement. I give a resounded sigh. I have no clue, Mom. She said she would be here and I brought her jacket because I saw that she left it at home. But Mary Beth said she hasn't been here, and she doesn't know where she is. I say, looking down at the denim jacket in my hand for emphasis. My mom puts her hand on my shoulder and looks me in the eye. It's a nice thing you did, bringing that to her. If you hadn't, we wouldn't have known she wasn't here, she says, squeezing my shoulder with her manicured hand. A small beam of pride wells up in my chest, but I only offer her a sad smile. My dad, who had been talking to Mary Beth's mom, walks over to us. "When was the last time you called her?" he asks, pulling out his phone. Crap. I didn't call once. Just a few minutes ago," I respond. My dad nods and pulls up Claire's contact info. I see him dial as he steps to the side of the living room with his ear to the phone. This just isn't like Claire. To disappear like that? My mom says. I feel my shining moment growing. It isn't. You're right. Do you think she lied? On purpose? Lied to you, Dad, and me? Maybe she lied to do something that you wouldn't have approved of. I say timidly. I have to make it sound like I'm coming up with a theory as I'm talking. Really sell it. As I'm watching the gears turn in my mom's head, Mary Beth and her mother appear in the room again. Mary Beth looks like she's about to throw up, and her mother has a stern hand on her shoulder. Go ahead, tell them what you told me, her mother says sternly. Mary Beth is silent. I said, now, young lady, or so help me God. Okay, Mary Beth squeaks. I don't know where Claire is. That is true, but I know what she's doing. My mother raises her eyebrows at her. Oh, here we go. Mary Beth fiddles with the hem of her sweater, looking straight down at the hardwood floor. Claire was meeting a boy tonight, and she asked me to cover for her. I feign shock on my face. A boy? My mom asks. What boy? A boy from your school? Mary Beth shakes her head. No, she met him online, Mary Beth whispers. The shock on my face is no longer fake. What? I yell. Oh my God, my mom gasps, turning to find my dad. I'm sorry. She's been talking with him for a few months. I told her it was not a good idea to meet him alone, but she said he was normal and nice. She said that they video chatted a few times. I'm so sorry. I've been trying to call her since you got here, but she won't answer. Mary Beth begins to cry, putting her face in her hands. I hear my dad yelling in the other room. Claire, baby, where are you? Tell me where you are, Claire. I sprint into the other room and see my dad pressing the phone to his ear as hard as he can. His face is turned bright red. Tears have sprung from his eyes. I hear a sound coming from his phone, and I would know it anywhere. It's Claire, crying, wailing. Daddy, please help me, please. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Her sentence is cut off by a piercing scream, loud enough to bring Mary Beth and her mom in from the other room. Claire, God! My dad screams, hurling his phone at the wall, shattering the screen into a million pieces. My mom has her hand over her mouth, but her eyes are wild with emotions. I'm calling the police, Mary Beth's mother says, as she scurries out of the room. My mom begins to sob, and my dad leans his head against the wall, trying to compose himself. No. This wasn't supposed to happen. She was just supposed to be grounded, I whisper. My father's head turns up to look at me. She was just supposed to be grounded, maybe yelled at, but that's all. And it would have been fine tomorrow, I whisper, looking down at Claire's jacket I still held in my now trembling hands. My mother and father make eye contact before my father slowly crosses the room to me. What do you know? It's been 2 weeks. 2 miserable, brutal, quiet weeks since Claire went missing. I've been waiting for that feeling of relief. That relief of getting what I always wanted, for her to go away. But it doesn't come. I take her jacket to sleep with me every night, holding it next to my pillow and curling around it. I've developed an attachment to it. Like I'm afraid that if I don't sleep next to it, the hope is gone, but as long as I have it nearby, I'm connected to her. My parents have stopped speaking to me since that night, after the police arrived at Mary Beth's house. They spoke to us all separately. I told them the truth, that I knew she was planning to sneak out, but I said nothing, hoping she would get in trouble. The officer gave me a sympathetic smile before closing his notepad. During this time, all they have gathered was that Claire did meet someone online who claimed to be 18 and named Ethan. Ethan was careful to not talk about plans or any specifics over text or message. They mostly spoke on the phone. They found phone calls and text messages going back months and months. They did find video calls, but they appeared to have been tampered with, as well as their chats. Whoever did this has done it before, and from the messages, they've gathered that Ethan knew everything about Claire already, seemingly before she even told him, and they finally figured out where he picked her up from, and it was less than a mile from our house. They found his phone at the park down the road from us, the opposite way from Mary Beth's house. The screen was broken, but it still turned on. My sister was the only saved number. Ethan figured out a way to cover his tracks, but the police keep saying they'll stay on it. Every time the phone rings or someone knocks on the door, my mom just about has a heart attack running to answer. She will say a few things in passing to me, but she's just so sad. She just stares at Claire's photo. Sometimes she cries, but she's mostly quiet. My dad, I know he blames me. I've tried to explain that I had no idea it was a boy online. I thought it was someone from her class. I would never want her to get hurt. He doesn't care, especially once the police pulled the records and he realized I never called her myself that night. What if you called her? Once you got to Mary Beth's, you could have spoken to her. What if you could have figured out where she was? He had asked me. To which I had no response. He leaves the house every day to look for her. We've led search teams, put her picture everywhere, held a press conference. Everything the police said would help. We even posted a reward. But the days pass and my sister doesn't come home. It was a Monday when we found out. When you find out something that impacts the rest of your life, you really zone in on everything around you in that moment. The wallpaper that had begun to lightly peel above the mantel that held Claire's soccer photo. The smell of the Febreze my mom had just sprayed in the living room when the detective called and asked if he could come by to talk. The sound of the garbage truck making its way down the road. If I close my eyes, I'm back sitting on the couch next to my mom. My dad refused to sit. He wanted to remain standing, no matter how much the detective insisted otherwise. That Monday was the day I found out that Claire was really gone. And she was really gone because they had found her. A hiker had discovered something wrapped in green fabric sticking out of the ground and called it in. It was Claire. From the autopsy, the detective had said they were able to gather that she had been tortured and brutalized up until the end of her life, though it was hard to know specifics with what remained of her. Though I wouldn't be surprised if they were keeping details from us on purpose, to try to protect us, and they placed her time of death not soon after she had gone missing. And the boy? My father asked. The detective shook his head. We haven't been able to find him, sir. I still clutched her jacket while he continued to tell us the news as gently as he could, though I couldn't look at the detective. I just stared at Claire's photo on the mantel, in her green soccer uniform. Green. I always liked her in green. In my time I've had to think about Claire, I've realized I actually liked quite a bit about her. I liked her laugh, her style, her unwavering kindness and optimism. And that was all I had of her now. These memories, these things I admired but could never bring myself to tell her, and now I never will. We held her funeral a week later, closed casket, but there were enough flowers to rival a garden. We opened the floor for people to speak, and everyone spoke about how Claire had touched their lives in some way. It became too much. Too much to handle. I retreated to the parking lot to smoke a cigarette in an attempt to gather myself. I was standing outside for only a moment when I saw my mom approach from the corner of my eye. "Could I have one?" she asked. I raised my eyebrows but held the pack and a lighter out to her. She lit a cigarette and took a long drag before staring out into the lot. We sat there for a moment in uncomfortable silence. "She adored you, you know," my mom finally says. I turned to her in surprise. "No, I mean, she was always good to me, but I don't think..." I start. "She did, though. She idolized you. From the moment she understood anything, you were her big sister, and she just loved you. Her first real word was sissy. Did you know that?" My mom tells me, taking another drag of her cigarette. I stare at her in shock. "I didn't know that. No," I whisper. We sit in silence again before it's my turn to break it. We were supposed to have more time. We were supposed to become friends later. Be there for one another. The whole thing. And if I had just called her, or been less jealous, it's just not fair." "Death is never fair, honey," my mom interrupts, tossing the finished cigarette in the dirt and stepping on it with her boots. I feel my cheeks become wet. It must be rainfall. I reach my hand out to catch a drop and realize the sky is bright and blue. The wetness is coming from my eyes. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I wish I had done more," I whimper. My mom looks at me with a sympathetic expression, and she wraps me into a tight hug. I let myself cry into her shoulder. "You don't have to apologize to me, honey. Just take it one day at a time. That's all we can do." She says into my hair before patting me on the back and heading back inside. I sit down on the sidewalk, or collapse, really, and just look up at the sky. I'm not very religious, but I would like to think Claire is looking down on all of us today, that she's here and laughing over the dramatics of the day, but admiring the beautiful flowers that bloomed just for her. If I close my eyes, I can hear her faint laugh carry through my memory, and I dread the day I will inevitably forget it. I scratch at my new tattoo on my wrist, remembering to put lotion on. So I welcome the distraction and pull the small tube out of my bag and roll up my sleeve, smiling at the words "sissy" in green ink, forever etched into my skin. My mother once told me that every plant has 3 names. The first a scientist comes up with, specific and precise, describing the plant without knowing it. The second is what locals call it, usually something practical like what it cures or what kills it. The oyster plant is named for how it tastes when cooked. The third name is what the plant names itself, and the one you have to listen for. She was in her garden the first time I heard this, hands deep in soil, entirely at home in a way she could never be indoors. The garden was her natural element. Inside the house she would move with the caution and formality of a guest who didn't want to impose, but outside she was different. She felt looser, more herself. An entire day could be spent out there, and I'd only see her come back inside when the light faded from the skyline, and all that was left were the stars shining on her work. Soil could be seen tracking across the kitchen floor without her noticing, all while lecturing me about humidity and hydration. Age crept up on her the same way she would always talk about her plants growing. Underground at first, with no one noticing. By the time we did notice, it had been growing for a while. At first, she would forget small things like appointments or where she'd put the keys. The larger things started to go. Faces, important dates, her own history. Shuffled like a deck of cards in her mind. Some mornings she'd look at me with a polite, searching expression, working hard to connect the face in front of her to whatever memories she had. I'd watch her get close and then drift away just off the mark. Always somewhere near, but never my daughter. She always knew her plants, though. Every last one of them. All 3 names. I hadn't been back in 6 months. I told myself it was work, which was partly true. Distance played its part. Donna was also there, and more than capable. I had no shortage of reasons, though the real reason was simpler and less forgivable. Every time I came home, my mother was a little less there, and I was running out of will to face it. It took me every last bit I had to stand outside my old house that day. Donna met me at the front with the warmth and experience of a grief professional who's all too used to this. She walked me to the living room while explaining how things are going, her voice even and unhurried. A mix of bad days and good, she told me. Eleanor has been sleeping inconsistently, waking up at strange hours and eating only when reminded. Her mobility is fine, a blessing at her age, and she still spends most of her time outside, fall, rain, or shine. Her voice sounded defeated, which I knew meant she'd given up trying to talk her out of it. I nodded along to the health charts and test results, and then took a glance outside the kitchen window, which is when I noticed it. The garden should have been dying. It was mid-October and the beds should have been bare, mulched and resting, waiting for a cold, unapologetic winter. But what I saw was the opposite. Lush greens and hues of lavender spread through every section. Everything was growing, not stubbornly or forcefully, but with confidence. What you would see in the height of June. Colors that had no business being there were practically announcing themselves to the world, and blooms tumbled over the beds to stretch onto the pathway. The whole yard was luminous in the dull autumn, in a way I could never describe, and in the middle of it, my mother was happily tending to them. I realized Donna had asked me something. Sorry, what was that? I asked if you would like some tea, dear. Oh, yes, please, thank you. I found my mother in a far flower bed, kneeling in the soil without gloves, with the earth up to her wrists. She was tending something low to the ground, working around its base with a focus and precision that had been absent from the rest of her life for about a year now. Mom? I called out. She looked up. I watched her glance at me and try to piece together who I was. It took a few seconds, but she eventually settled and smiled. For a moment, she was entirely herself. So, Yeon, she finally said, using my full name the way she only did when I was in trouble or when she was feeling tender. Thankfully, today was tender. She eagerly beckoned me over. Come and look at this one. It's nearly ready. I crouched down to see what she was working on. It was an ordinary plant, dark leaves, compact, unremarkable. Ready for what? I asked. To do its part here, she said as if it were obvious. I stayed beside her for a while, not helping or talking, just admiring how hard she worked. The garden smelled as it always had, soil and earthy, with certain herbal tones underneath that I could never name. Through the long years, this unnameable smell turned into our home, more nostalgic than any laundry detergent or cooking. After a while, she sat back on her heels and glanced around with a look of satisfaction. There is still much left to do, she said. her voice bright with excitement. "I know," I told her, helping her from the ground. "I'm here now too. I can help." She patted my back and met my gaze with heavy eyes. "You always did come back." 3 days later, I found myself wide awake at night. I laid in a spare bed, listening to the house around me settle into the dark and staring up at the ceiling. Once it hit 2 in the morning, I gave up and decided to head downstairs. Arriving at the kitchen, I stood at the window with a glass of water and looked outside. The garden shined silver and still in the moonlight. A slightly purple hue rose above the dark and revealed a path past the beds away from the house. I set my glass aside and unlocked the door. The air was cold and smelled of earth with notes of something sweet underneath. My bare feet brushed along the blades of grass, following the nearest path into the plants. I meant to walk to the fence and back, a short, aimless loop to try and get myself sleepy. I never reached the back fence. I walked far longer than I should have. That was the first thing I noticed. It wasn't alarming, just off. The way a nostalgic song sounds in a different key. It was a path I'd walked on several times before, yet it didn't feel the same. Then I noticed the beds on either side of me changing gradually. Rows were curving in ways that didn't match the rectangular yard I looked at through the window. Pathways branched where they hadn't before, running off at angles that shouldn't have fit the geometry of the space. When I tried to follow one with my eyes, I couldn't see the end. I stopped walking, and for a moment forgot how to breathe. Not from fear, but from what I saw around me. Flowers were wrong in the most beautiful way. Blooms that should have been closed for winter, closed for the hour, for the reasons of basic biology, were wide open and luminous. Lit from within were colors that I had no name for, shining as if they were teaching my eyes how to see again. The roots were moving. I could see them through the soil, which had become almost translucent in the moonlight. They were traveling, long and deliberate threads pushed through the dark terrain in every direction. They crossed, twisted, and recrossed beneath my feet as I felt their movement through my soles. With each new thread, a new pathway formed, lined with plants I never once thought I'd be able to see with my own eyes. Leaves whose edge moved like water, stems that hummed a familiar memory. All of it was forming and shaping around me. I pressed my hands against the soil. It was warm. Warm the way something loved for years is warm. From the inside out, beneath my palm, something moved, deep and slow, like a heartbeat moving when someone pressed against your chest. And in response, my own heart matched it. I stayed on the ground for a long time, kneeling in my mother's garden, listening to the love it was given being shown back to me. I decided to stay after that week. I called my job and found a way to work remotely. Donna had agreed to let me help around with whatever I could. My mother accepted me back into her days without ceremony, as if I'd always been there, as if the months of absence were simply nothing. Some mornings she knew exactly who I was. We would sit over coffee and talk for hours, going nowhere in particular. Other mornings I was an acquaintance she was fairly certain she liked, but couldn't place quite why. She'd be polite to me during those days. The hardest mornings came when I was a stranger to her entirely. She would greet me with a look of complete confusion, like I was out of place. Those days I learned to just be useful, make the tea, hand her things, sit close without needing anything from her. Mostly I would be with her in the garden, always there for her, giving back whatever the morning took. During the night, I'd go out, every few days, always past midnight, always barefoot. I would follow a random path away from the house and watched what it would become that night. I didn't try to map it, nor understand it. I just let it take me along until it was ready to show me back to the house. During the mornings I would help my mother with the plants. It wasn't anything big during the last few weeks. Holding equipment, patting down soil, tasks that required more labor than skill. I never pushed past what she showed me, and she never asked me to do more than I could. Eventually, we fell into a rhythm of me showing up and paying attention to how she worked, the same way she would pay attention to the garden. One morning in December, she was on her knees beside a sprawling vine that had taken over the south end, its leaves broad and dark, threading through with thin copper veins. I crouched beside her with a trowel I had just gotten the hang of. "This one is stubborn," she said. Not exactly to me, more to the vine itself. "It wants to go everywhere at once." "Is that bad?" I asked. "Not bad, just young." She worked her fingers through the tendrils that had been climbing the fence post. "It doesn't know yet that it has time. Young things never do." I watched her hands with a sureness to them, the edge of the leaves catching the thin winter light. My mother was like that, she told me. Always in a hurry, always certain the world would move on without her. The corner of her lip slightly lifted. She eventually slowed down. We all do. "What was she like?" I asked carefully. She rarely spoke of my grandmother since her passing. "Oh, stubborn as anything," she said, with a fondness that made my chest ache. "Beautiful, too. We both take after her in that way. You have her eyes, you know. Same shape, same color, same way they examine a person." I kept very still. My mother leaned back against the fence, smiling to herself as she relived small moments. "I wish you could have seen her in this garden. She was the one who started it, though she stopped tending it before long." I had seen her in this garden. She knew that, but not right now. I didn't try to correct her. I just stayed and let her look at me with an open, wondering expression. I wondered if she saw the same expression on me while I watched her work. "She taught me to listen," she eventually said, turning back to the vine. "That was the most important thing. Most would look at this plant and see it for what it is. She taught me to wait and see what it would become." She tucked the tendril into place with a gentleness that made her gesture look like kindness. I never thanked her for that. I meant to. "I think she knew," I said with confidence. My mother looked at me. For a moment, just a moment, she was entirely clear. No searching, no assembling of memories. Just her looking at me, smiling, the way she used to. "Yes, I think you're right." We worked in silence the rest of that morning. It was the best one we'd had in months. It was during January when I saw it. I had been seeing it for about a week. Always at the far end of the garden, always still, always there when I looked and gone when I kept looking. Each night I'd stood at the window and watched for a while before heading back to bed, as if something deep in my consciousness knew I wasn't ready to meet it. On a Tuesday I woke without an alarm, the same way I had been for weeks. I laid still in the dark, listening to the house around me. I could hear my mother breathing in the next room. I got up. The garden gleamed through the crisp night air the way it always had, silver, shining, and more than it should have been. I stood at the kitchen window for a long moment before I unlocked the door and stepped outside. My bare feet brushed against the grass. I started walking the way I always did, and there I saw the figure, waiting at the far end of the garden. This time I didn't stop walking. It was still at first, in a way that made everything around it seem restless by comparison. It stood the border where the garden pressed up against the fence, or where the fence should have been. They seemed entirely made of light. No shadow, no silhouette, just white. The shape was simply a person standing, tall and unremarkable. They took my breath completely. As I approached, they didn't move. Up close, it seemed no clearer than from far away, present the way a drop of temperature is, the way a room feels after someone has left it. I felt a weight on my chest, like my mind knew what was in front of me, but could not put it into words that I understood. They didn't even seem to know I was there, only the plants held their attention. "You aren't part of the garden," I told them. "You've been coming here for a while." "Yes." "Why?" The figure was quiet for long enough that I thought they wouldn't answer. After seconds that had the weight of hours, they finally replied. "Because of how it's tended." Their voice sounded like a millennium of memories collapsed into a single tone. "Most places I go are defined by what is being lost in it. This one is defined by what was given to it." At that moment, I understood who the figure was, and what they were here for. The garden around me felt imposing. My own heartbeat felt like a drum behind my ear. My mind, which should have been asking 1,000 questions, went blank. I couldn't stop myself from shaking. "My mother, does she know about this place?" I asked. "Has she seen any of this?" "No." It gestured to all around us. "She made this without knowing she was making it. What you see before you is love in its purest form." I stood with those words for a moment. For most of her life, my mother had come out here every day, pressing her hands into the soil, paying attention and asking for nothing back. Without knowing it, she built something that gave comfort to a presence most only ever meet once. She didn't do it for that. She didn't do it for anything but the plants themselves, and the simple, unglamorous love of showing up. That was the most her thing I had ever heard. I would have let out a laugh if tears hadn't taken over instead. "Is it time?" I asked. "For her." "She's very tired. She's been working for a long time." "She doesn't know that either." I closed my eyes for a moment. When I opened them again, I saw the garden, beautiful in every way. "It isn't done yet. I want to help her finish it." "You'd have to tend it the way she does." "I know." "Do you?" I thought about every time I'd driven away, every phone call in place of a visit, every morning that I told myself that she was fine, that Donna was there and distance didn't matter. I thought of my mother the first day I came, her hands in the soil, asking nothing of it but to grow. I thought of her eyes when she told me I always came back. "I'm learning," I finally said. "Yes, I've been watching. I hope you tend to it well." Then they were simply gone. No drama, no gust of wind, just gone. Then it was just me, with the heartbeat of the garden beneath my feet. After that night, I kept working beside my mother every day that she was well enough. Some days she wasn't, though we went out anyway. On good days she told me things I'd never heard, about the country she left, about my father in the early years, stories of when she first came here. One afternoon in February, we were tending to a dark-stemmed bed of roses, blooming a color words couldn't quite reach. "I used to worry about leaving you," she said without looking up. "When you were small, I'd lie awake thinking about it." "You don't have to worry about that," I told her. "I know," she said, patting the soil flat. "I stopped. You came back." "I know. I won't be going anywhere. Not anymore." My mother passed on a morning in early March, before spring had fully arrived. I woke up on a chair. I'd moved into her room 2 weeks before. The house had a stillness to it. The temperature had dropped. I sat beside her for a long time, until there was no water left in me to cry out. Outside the kitchen window, the garden was extraordinary. Everything open at once, every bed alive, glowing in the foggy weather in a way that didn't need to be explained. It was the most beautiful it had ever been. I went outside in my socks and knelt in the wet grass until the cold came through. The soil was warm beneath my hands. The low hum of a heartbeat was still there, steady and unhurried, as it had always been. I understood in that moment that it would always be there. that a life of love pressed into this ground didn't just go away, that she had just shown up every day, paid attention, and that was enough. It had always been enough. By summer, the garden had settled back toward the ordinary. The paths had straightened. The once impossible geometry softened. The plants settled to a beauty a neighbor could admire with just a glance. I kept the beds closest to the house and tended them, pressing my hands into the soil every morning the way she used to. Some nights I still walk to the far end of the yard. I don't see anything there now. But once, on a November morning with frost on the grass and my breath clouding in front of my face, I felt it. It felt like someone had been in the garden, a room just vacated, the air still warm from it. I stood in it for a while. It felt like company. I still don't know what I'm growing, but I tend to it the way she taught me, without asking for anything back. Some days I think I'm getting closer to understanding. Other days I think understanding was never the point. I think about my mother during those times. I wonder if she's reached wherever she was going, or if she's taking her time. At the very least, I hope her journey is lined with plenty of things worth stopping for, and listening to. She used to say that every plant has 3 names. The third one being what the plant calls itself, what you need to be listening for. I spent a lot of my life not listening, too busy, far away, too certain that what was growing here was a garden and nothing more. I know better now. Sometimes I come out in the night, kneel in the soil and listen, the way she did, the way she was always doing during all the years I wasn't paying attention. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, I think I almost hear it. It sounds like Eleanor. When you were a kid, did you ever do something stupid or kind of mean to try and look cool in front of people you wanted to impress? Something you probably really regretted later on? I did. And now I really, really wish I hadn't. If I'd refused, then maybe. I'm getting ahead of myself. I grew up in a small town in the middle of the Midwest. It wasn't any place special. You've probably seen or driven through a couple hundred towns like it. It had a town hall, a church, a couple banks, a police station, a firehouse, a library, a doctor's office, a few dozen restaurants and shops, a movie theater, and a school. The school was the oldest building in town and probably one of the few things that could set my hometown apart from others. You see, there weren't separate buildings for an elementary school, middle, and high school. It was just one long building with different classrooms/areas meant for different students, other than occasionally getting refitted for modern safety standards. Like when they installed a new fire alarm system, no one saw a reason to change the building. This meant that the older and younger students tended to intermingle a lot. Most of the time, this wasn't a problem. A lot of kids, unless they saw a sibling or something, tended to stick to their age group. But sometimes, kids tried to step out of their comfort zone and hang with the upperclassmen. Most of the time, they got gently rejected, or laughed at. But once in a blue moon, the upperclassmen would allow an underclassman to join them. I was one of those lucky few, though if I'd known what I know now, I never would have tried. You see, I was homeschooled all through elementary school. My mother felt that public education wasn't good for a child's early development, and had my grandmother, a retired teacher herself, teach me. This went on until the summer I turned 11, when I begged my parents to let me attend public school. My dad agreed with me. He didn't think it was fair that I was being denied a chance to make friends. Finally, Mom relented and had me enrolled in the local school. Socializing had been hard at first, seeing as how I was the new kid. Some girls were nice, but most of them had been friends since kindergarten or earlier, and didn't trust an outsider. Thus, I had tried to reach out to the upperclassmen for friends. Unlike many other kids, I succeeded. My friends were both 2 grades ahead of me. Let's call them Rachel and Johnny. At 13, Rachel was 2 years older than me. I remembered I'd thought she was practically an adult because she wore makeup and had a cell phone. Her dad was the head of the most successful bank in town, making her family the most well-off. She was a little vain, but was usually nice. Her cousin Johnny was 14, having been held back a year for reasons I still don't know. He wore a leather jacket to school every day, regardless of weather, wore sunglasses whenever he walked outside, and flirted with every girl in his grade or higher. I don't actually know when or why they agreed to let me hang out with them. Maybe they took pity on me, but looking back, I wonder if it was because they thought I was enough of a pushover for them to make me play the mocking game. One of the benefits of going to such an old school is that there are numerous old spots and secrets that many of the newer teachers don't know about. Places and secrets passed down to each generation of students. Most of them are things like where the best places are to best make out without being interrupted, where in the school library you can hide if you want to cut class, etc. But there were some secrets remembered only by a few. One of them was the tree house. Back in the 1950s, a group of students had built a massive treehouse in the forest behind the school. It wasn't a simple one-roomed shed in the branches, but instead a massive 4-room structure with a waterproof roof, a permanent ladder, even a chimney. It had been a regular hangout for students back in the day, but only the upperclassmen. None of them were allowed to tell any underclassmen under threat of killing your social life. They were all seniors, so by the time the last of them graduated, knowledge of the treehouse faded away. At least until Rachel and Johnny found it, and came up with a new use for it. Well, a lot of people don't remember the treehouse. Rachel explained to me as we walked to the structure. It actually sits next to a well-used hiking trail in the park. Ghost Park? I'd asked, trying to keep the fear out of my voice. Even I knew the rumors about the local park being haunted. Both my older friends laughed. By the end of today, Johnny promised as we approached the treehouse, "You'll know why it's called that." After showing me the treehouse, which had held up remarkably well for something built over 50 years ago, the two had led me inside. I was startled to find, of all things, a bird in a cage. It wasn't a very well-kept bird. While there was a dish of water and pile of seeds on the bottom of its cage, neither looked like they'd been touched in a while, and it was missing quite a few feathers, many of them on the cage floor. My dad has an aviary of starlings in our backyard. Rachel commented as Johnny picked up the cage. He doesn't actually count them. Whenever one dies, he just goes to the pet store one town over and buys a new one. He never even notices when I take one. I blinked, confused. Johnny, snickering, told the bird, "Mocking game." Then, leaning out to the treehouse window, he tucked the bird's cage onto 2 especially thick tree branches. The foliage was so thick that you couldn't see the cage unless you were looking right at it, and even then it was a challenge. The bird flitted in its cage, agitated. Then it pulled one of its feathers out. "What are we doing exactly?" I finally asked. "Having some fun," Johnny grinned. It wasn't too long of a wait before someone walked up the trail. It was a woman dressed for jogging, a water bottle at her side. Rachel wiped off her lipstick, put her pinkies in her mouth, and gave a long, low whistle. The woman heard her and paused, looking confused. "Wait for it," Johnny whispered. Then from seemingly nowhere came a high-pitched voice. It sounded human mostly, but there was something off about it. It made a shiver slide up and down my spine. "So pretty, Pretty, pretty. Startled, the woman took a step back, her head turning as she tried to see where the voice was coming from. Pretty, pretty, come with me. The voice sounded a bit louder. Johnny and Rachel had their hands over their mouths, trying to stifle their giggles. The woman lost her composure and took off back the way she came. The jogging evidently paid off, because she was gone in seconds. Rachel and Johnny burst out laughing while I sat there stunned. What just happened? I asked. Starlings are great at mimicking voices, Rachel chortled. We used to just yell stuff into the woods in creepy voices. Then one day I thought I'd try using one of my dad's birds. We taught it what to say, hid it in the tree. It works great. The ghost park is called Ghost Park thanks to us. Johnny guffawed. For a moment, I wanted to leave. It was my new friend's primary form of entertainment was scaring innocent people. Then I doubted they were the kind of people I wanted as friends. But they were my only friends. I hadn't had any luck making friends with anyone else. In that age, feeling lonely sounded worse than feeling guilty. So I pulled up the corners of my mouth and faked a laugh. To keep from getting caught, Rachel, Johnny, and I didn't play the mocking game all the time. After all, do it too often and you're bound to get caught. Typically, we only went to the treehouse every 2 weeks or so, and during the winter, unless it was unusually warm, we didn't go at all. I never stopped feeling bad about scaring innocent people, but I thought that as long as we weren't actually hurting anyone, and didn't do it too often, then it wouldn't be too bad. Over the next 3 years, I kept hoping that Johnny and Rachel would eventually lose interest in the mocking game. Not just due to guilt, but because of how we played it. While the treehouse was meticulously built, something about it left me uneasy. As I spent more time there, I often wondered how it had stayed standing for so long, and in such good condition with no upkeep. Other things concerned me too. Why were there never bugs or animals in the house? Nor signs that they'd been there. How come rain never seemed to come into the windows? Or pine needles for that matter? How could such a big treehouse not be seen from a trail that wasn't more than 20 feet from it? And then there were the starlings. The birds Johnny and Rachel used for the mocking game all dropped dead after only being used 4 or 5 times. Often, Rachel would leave the bird in the treehouse on her way to school so we could play the mocking game after. I even went with her a couple times. The bird was always reasonably calm and happy when it was left there, but by the time we got back, it would be a ball of nerves, with several feathers ripped out. Why do you call it the mocking game? I whispered to Rachel and Johnny at lunch one day. They paused, shared a look, then shrugged in sync. We were just hanging out in the treehouse one day, and we came up with the idea of scaring people. Johnny explained. The name for it just sort of came to us. That topic, unfortunately, led to their discussing their weekend plans with me. That year, they were both graduating. Their respective parents both wanted them to go on summer college tours, which meant they'd be far too busy to do any of their usual summer antics. So, that evening, they wanted to go play the mocking game one last time. I was torn. On one hand, if it was the last night of the game, then I'd never have to scare people or go to the creepy treehouse again. On the other hand, we'd never played it at night. But we don't have a bird, I whispered, hoping that I might talk them out of it. Rachel smirked. We didn't always use a bird. We can just make spooky noises. The park's reputation will do the rest. Come on, it'll be fun. I sighed. I'd been a pushover throughout my childhood, and they knew by then that it didn't take much encouragement to get me in on their schemes. After class that day, I stopped off at home long enough to stuff a flashlight, bottle of water, and snacks into my backpack. As I started to head out the door, I remembered something my dad, a forest ranger for the nearby national park, had said about bears being more active at night. Not wanting to risk facing a dangerous animal, I grabbed a can of my dad's bear spray and a box of matches from the garage. My parents weren't going to be in until much later that night. In the last few years, something weird had been happening in the nearby national park and at several neighboring farms. First, farmers had noticed chickens or ducks disappearing from their coops, then turkeys, then pigs, then sheep, then cows. Every couple weeks it seemed one or two animals would just vanish without a trace. When 3 weeks passed without any animals vanishing, the confused farmers hoped that was the end of it. That is, until hikers started disappearing. I made it to the meeting point on the school playground a little after 7. School had been closed for hours by then. Rachel and Johnny showed up a few minutes later, holding a bag of sandwiches. "Here," Rachel chirped as she handed one to me. "American cheese with mustard. Your favorite." I hate American cheese, and mustard makes my lips burn, but she thought it was my favorite, so I thanked her and took a bite of the sandwich. As we walked toward the treehouse, I spat out the bite I'd taken and tossed the sandwich into the trees. Rachel and Johnny didn't notice as they inhaled their sandwiches. By the time we got to the treehouse, the sun was gone. A few stars could be seen through the tree branches, but other than that, there was hardly any light. "Do you think anyone's even going to come through here?" I asked as the three of us turned on our flashlights. Johnny smirked. "I might have started a rumor that girls think the forest at night is romantic. We're bound at least to get a few kids from school." Later, I would learn why he was wrong. Several of the more popular kids at school were hosting a barbecue for the senior class, though all students were welcome to attend. Time ticked by as we waited for someone. I think I'm the one who noticed something first. You see, in nature, there's this phenomena called the silence. Whenever a dangerous predator is in the area, every nearby animal will go completely quiet. No birds chirping, no squirrels chittering, nothing. Hunters, loggers, rangers, anyone who works outside can tell you that it's an eerie feeling. My dad says it's nature's way of telling you to watch your back. That night, it was a warm spring, the kind that tells you summer is coming quickly. The night birds were starting to call, cicadas were going crazy. There was the scrabbling of small animals in the undergrowth. Then suddenly it all stopped. No forewarning, no tapering off. It just cut off, like turning off a radio. Rachel and Johnny had been talking to each other and didn't realize what had happened, but they seemed to notice rather quickly that their voices suddenly seemed a lot louder than they'd been seconds before. "What's going on?" Johnny whispered to me. I peered out the treehouse window, looking into the forest. I froze, my voice dying in my throat. There was something standing in the tree line, staring right at us. It looked like a stick figure drawing of a man, long, stick-like limbs with no visible hands or feet, an impossible thin torso that stretched out at least 8 feet, and a round, lumpy head with 2 glowing red eyes. 2 eyes staring right at us. Johnny and Rachel still hadn't seen it, but they noticed I was shaking. "Hey, are you all right?" Rachel asked, her voice painfully loud in the silence. The creature's head ticked to the side. It heard us. "It's probably just drafty or something," Johnny flippantly responded. I wanted to scream to shut them up, but my throat was closed. My eyes were still locked onto the creature. "Pretty." Johnny and Rachel froze at the sound of the voice. I did too, but for a different reason. I'd watched the creature's mouth open. "Guys," I whispered to Johnny and Rachel, "did you ever actually see the starlings say those things?" Johnny's pupils shrank as Rachel's face paled. "Pretty, pretty, pretty. Pretty teach talk." As I watched, I noticed the creature was getting closer to the treehouse. "Turn off the flashlights," Johnny hissed as he scrambled for his light. "Rachel, tears and mascara running down her face. Struggled but got her and my flashlight off. Pretty teach talk, pretty teach lure food, pretty good teach. Its voice was growing closer. There was a creak in the boards of the ladder, and then it was silent. We waited. A minute passed, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Johnny, sounding like a scared little boy, was the first to speak. Maybe it's gone. Rachel turned on her flashlight and screamed bloody murder. The creature was in the window, its entire head the size of the frame. It was even more terrifying up close. The skin was a rotten orange-brown. Its mouth was filled with knife-like teeth. Its eyes were soulless, pupilless red orbs. A white rag of some sort was stuck in the side of its mouth. Pretty good teach, pretty now food. Screaming, Johnny shoved Rachel aside and ran for the other window. Rachel, crying and screaming, tried to run after him. I was still on the floor, frozen, and she tripped over me. As the creature started to reach inside the house, Rachel got up, shoved me towards the monster, and darted after Johnny. I hadn't managed to regain my balance before something grabbed me around the middle, pinning my arms down. The monster's vine-like fingers dug into my skin. Trying not to cry or scream, I was forced to stare at the creature's face as it pulled me closer and closer to its gaping mouth. It sniffed. Food giver. No, eat food giver. It let me go immediately. I stood there in shock and noticed the rag sticking out of its mouth. It wasn't a rag, it was a wrapper. The wrapper from the sandwich I'd thrown away. Must find pretty, pretty boy, pretty girl, must have pretty. With that, the monster's face removed itself from the window. I collapsed to the floor. I felt like laughing, crying, screaming, running away, and throwing up all at once. I debated leaving the treehouse, creepy as it was, but decided against it. As terrified as I was, I barely knew how to get back to the school from here during the day, let alone in the dark. With my dad's bear spray in my hands, I waited all night, barely daring to breathe. I didn't move, not even when I heard Rachel's agonizing screams, or Johnny's, which seemed to go on much longer than Rachel's had. Eventually, daylight started to creep through the woods, bringing warmth. That was a small comfort, though, compared to the sounds of morning birds calling. Birds wouldn't call if the creature was still there. The knowledge that I was truly safe helped me finally relax. Exhaustion started to take over, but I still managed to climb out of the treehouse. I was still wearing my backpack, but in my exhaustion, I forgot the matches and bear spray. It took a minute, but I made it back to the school. A police car was waiting there. My mother had noticed I wasn't home the night before and sounded the alarm. I was taken to the police station where I reunited with my parents. After giving us a few moments, a stern-looking deputy asked me to step aside and answer a few questions. Johnny and Rachel hadn't returned home either, and everyone knew I was one of their only friends. I told the truth. The realistic truth, anyway. Johnny and Rachel had been planning a prank in the woods, and I'd been roped into it. Some animal had appeared and scared them off, leaving me alone in the treehouse. When they decided I was telling the truth and did not know what had happened to Johnny and Rachel, I was free to leave with my parents. I noticed, however, that the deputies had looked troubled at my mentioning the old treehouse. The next night, my dad was called in to help with a fire in the woods behind the school. I was never told the exact details, and the newspapers were asked, bribed, or threatened not to publish anything. But the rumor mill couldn't be stopped. According to the neighborhood gossips, someone had found the old treehouse in the woods and either intentionally or accidentally set it ablaze. When they got it under control enough to go in, they found 2 sets of abandoned, blood-stained clothes. Johnny and Rachel's clothes, though the location of their bodies was still a mystery. The chief fireman said that a can of bear spray had been used to start the blaze, likely something left behind by a hiker. I don't know if that's truly what happened at the site of the fire. I may never know. What I do know, however, is that Johnny and Rachel's parents moved out of town that summer. Parents started insisting that their kids only go into the woods with an adult, and even some adults started avoiding the forest. For a year or so, it was all anyone could talk about. But as years passed, people forgot. The story of the two missing kids and the mysterious fire went from a rumor to an urban legend, then a campfire story. There are a few people my age in this town who've forgotten the whole thing. But I didn't. I can't. I work in the next town and have to drive by the forest every day to get to my office. And this morning, as I drove near the forest behind the school, I heard a voice call out, "Pretty?"